I'm thinking they're back here.
This is the Tucson Police Department's homeless outreach team. Today, Officer Jacob Valenzuela and Josh Parrish are partnered up with Kelly Ross from Community Bridges Incorporated. The effort unifies law enforcement and social services. The trio is searching the Julian Wash.
So there's nobody up there.
A problem area, this unit has been here 4 times in the last year. The team fields calls from residents, neighborhood associations, and businesses.
They've been bouncing around, and there's been periodic issues with the businesses. One, it's unsightly, and we understand that. Nobody wants to go to a business that has a homeless camp in front of it. So we feel that stress from the businesses, and we try to help alleviate that. But to help kind of deter some of that, a lot of the businesses have been starting to upgrade some of their facilities, whether that's increased fencing and barbed wire or lighting, just working on some sort of engineering options to help kind of protect their business while we're trying to get these folks off the street.
Further south and east, we travel to Harris Park across from Davis Mountain Air Force Base. Homeless encampments dot golf links road along Aviation Bikeway.
Hello, anybody home?
The tents continue west toward Freedom Park. Hundreds of men and women call these makeshift structures home. Shayna has been here for 2 months.
Boyfriend lost his job, and we just kind of staying in hotels, and then the hotels staying for 4 years got too expensive. So that was the end of the road, and I don't know where to go from here.
A mom, she's lost custody of all 3 of her children. Every month, she goes to her grandmother's house to pick up her disability check that she uses to feed her addiction to opiates. Officer Parrish believes he can get Shayna into treatment.
Probably. At this point, I might.
So I think she's fairly receptive to getting help today. One of the issues I see that's going to be an issue is just how much stuff she has, whether or not she's willing to separate with some of that. Typically with shelters, the biggest barriers we see for people willing to go into a shelter space is they can't bring their dog or animal with them. They can't stay with their significant other, and they can only bring a couple of bags of their property. So when you're out here and you have your camp is all of the property you own, you don't want to separate with that because you don't know what's going to happen after you go to this shelter. Maybe you don't stay there. Maybe you move into an apartment after that. Great, the system's worked, but now if something happens, you're back on the street.
For weeks, the unit warned these transients that even though they didn't have to leave, they would need to move out of sight.
But it's so visible from the road, we finally got enough pressure that we got to come clean everything up. So
Officer Parrish explained the process to this woman who came to help her brother.
So just leave the trash, grab the stuff you want to keep.
Okay.
What we're hoping to be able to do is the folks on the other side of the pedestrian bridge, if they can keep everything real small, real clean, right? And hidden a little bit at least, so it's not so visible from the road. We're gonna try and coordinate with environmental services to do periodic trash pickups.
The next morning, crews from environmental services cleaned up the site. Shayna was still there.
We can move them over and over and over, but it just becomes someone else's problem, and they're dealing with their own problems. They're people too. They have emotions, they have feelings, and it's tough on them too. They're not out here just living the life. It's a struggle for them as well, and I think a lot of people don't realize that until we find a long-term solution where they can get off the street, that's going to be our only out, because all they have is these camps. These are their homes.
You guys are going to go to golf links in Craycroft, correct?
The homeless outreach team was the idea of Sergeant Jack Julsing. At 6'7", he towers inside of TPD's squad room that houses specialized units.
Yeah, get them past that bridge closer to Swan. And
A former U of A offensive lineman who stayed in Tucson following college, Julsing joined the police department. And after responding to many of the same issues with homelessness, he pitched an idea that partners public safety with social services. For him, it's where enforcement incorporates compassion.
a little messy here, but these are all kind of donations.
The unit began in January of 2020. New and small, 3 sworn officers alongside 5 park safety personnel who monitor the entire city's more than 220 square miles. Officer discretion, Julsing says, plays a role in policing.
Part of it is, yes, there are offenses and we have to enforce, the statutes when applicable, but there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And I want people to really understand, does it really help the overall issue if you're going to charge every offense every time you see a homeless person panhandling or loitering. Maybe a better option would be to see what issues are you struggling with? Can I take you somewhere? You can't be panhandling here, but I do want to help you get in touch with somebody that can provide you some housing or maybe provide you some detox or mental health treatment. And I think that's a better approach than just saying, I see a panhandler, I'm going to just arrest him for panhandling.
The medians and frontage roads along I-10 are notable areas these days.
Traffic backs up there, they know it. It takes forever to get on the freeway from Grant, right? Even Speedway, and so they know, hey, this is where I can make my money.
Although this area can be enforced by state and local authorities, it often comes down to resources.
Most homeless people would take a key to some form of permanent supportive housing. And I know people say, well, of course they would, that's free money for them. But a homeless individual costs us on the streets $30,000 a year through all the medical issues and criminal issues and all that. That's what they cost on the streets. It only costs $10,000 a year to house them. So that's actually a better spend of money.
Waiting for housing is another factor.
He might have done some risk assessment for him to get in housing. It just takes 3 to 6 months. It doesn't happen just like that. Certain people can get housing quicker, veterans, women that are pregnant, people with children. But if you're an able-bodied individual and you're not eligible for certain programs, you might be waiting 3 to 6 months or even longer to get some sort of housing matched for you.
It's an issue nearly every major city faces, and it weighs heavily on this officer.
It's something I still battle with, right? Is allowing them to camp there? Are we being too lenient? Are we going to enable more camps? There's a lot of times where I'm like, what's our complaint on this camp? Is it just that they're there? Okay, well, let's get outreach to them and give them a shot and try to talk about, hey, they are in the wash or they are in that tunnel, but they're trying not to bother anybody and we're trying to get them outreach. I have to have a balance, and so I can't give you one side or the other. It's a lot of gray for me.